Hey everyone, it's Chris from Smithy Finance with the midday market report for January 28th. So we had a little bit of a rebound from yesterday's red day, at least on the Nasdaq and the S&P. Today we got the Nasdaq up 300, so a nice rebound, and the Dow and the S&P are up a little bit. Now on the commodities side, which is my great interest, seeing gold and silver having a nice move, copper up a little bit. Platinum, palladium down. The gold and silver stocks, copper stocks, not doing much. They're really kind of out of favor right now. We do have Bitcoin higher. Bitcoin is currently 102 and a half, 102,500. And I think a lot of this speculative money is going into Bitcoin these days. The gold stocks have lost their oomph. And I think that money is coming from guys like me who used to be involved in the gold and silver stocks, and more we're pushing money into Bitcoin. So I don't know. Are they going to have their day? Probably, but I think it's going to be muted. And the hot money is going into the crypto, and for me that means Bitcoin. I don't play the smaller coins. I want to talk to you about MicroStrategy. Now, MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin treasury company, basically. And yesterday on Cramer's show, Mad Money, he said yes to Bitcoin, which is really interesting because he was negative on Bitcoin for a long time. I don't know exactly when he changed, but he said, yes, own some Bitcoin, and you should own some Bitcoin, is what he said. But don't own MicroStrategy. And so I have to disagree with that. And I'm going to give you a few reasons why. So MicroStrategy trades at about 2 times its Bitcoin value. Now they do have a separate business, but it's very small compared to their Bitcoin holdings. So it trades 2 times. So the stock is at $340, let's say right now. Its Bitcoin value is about 170, and it's trading 2 times that. So is that expensive? Well, on the surface, it looks like it is. Why would you pay twice as much? But let's have a look. So they own 470,000 Bitcoin. And over the last year, they had a quote Bitcoin yield of 75%, which means that for every dollar that you had in MicroStrategy, you had a certain amount of Bitcoin. And now for every dollar you have in MicroStrategy, you have that certain amount of Bitcoin plus 70%. So it's growing by 70%, or at least it did last year, 75%. So if we look at it and say, okay, it's $170 worth of Bitcoin today. If the Bitcoin yield is 50%, then next year that $170 grows to roughly $250. And then if it goes 50% again the next year, well, now you're at 375. The stock is at 340 right now. And then you go the next year, now you're getting up to 500 and change. And this is where the attractiveness is. So the question is, will MicroStrategy continue to trade at 2x its Bitcoin value? Well, it was only a few months ago, it was trading at 3.2, 3.3 times. So that premium has shrunk quite a bit. And can it shrink all the way to 1-to-1? Okay, so they have the options market. This is where I think that there's no way it can go back to 1-to-1. So the option market on MicroStrategy is very active, and the 340 calls of February 28th, okay, so it's exactly 1 month. Those 340 calls, when I wrote it down before I came here, they're trading at $36 bid. So it's an over 10% premium for 1 month. So you can buy the stock at 340 and write these 340 calls for $36. Now, if you do that every month for the next year, that's 120% premium. So that's very attractive. I don't do the covered call strategy because there's no doubt that it will bring in some nice income month after month. But I'm telling you, MicroStrategy is a crazy stock. It can pop 40% in a month, no problem. And I expect it will do so again in the future, or it could drop 40% in a month. So let's talk about that in a few moments. But anyway, these options are very valuable, And there's no way that there would not be a premium on MicroStrategy just because of the option volatility and the option premium. So I don't think it goes to 2 times, goes to 1 to 1. It could go lower, 1.8, 1.7, which means MicroStrategy would underperform Bitcoin. But I think that in the long term, their stash of Bitcoin, they've got 470,000, as I said. Imagine someone coming into the market right now, a government or government or a huge company, and their goal was to buy 470,000 Bitcoin. What would that push the price to? So Bitcoin is 102 right now. That it would be a huge buy order. What does it push it to? 125, 140, 150. So there's that as well. So I think this 2 times book or 2 times net asset value is warranted and could easily expand. So I'm actually considering selling some of my IBIT, the ETF, to buy MicroStrategy. I'm not yet, but I did sell some of the Mara. I mentioned yesterday that I bought some Mara. I have sold that, and I have put into Bitcoin. I had a 335 bid, and I got filled. So I'm bullish on MicroStrategy. I'm very bullish Bitcoin. I'm bullish MicroStrategy. I think Cramer's got it wrong, and it took him a long time to come into the Bitcoin mindset. I suspect eventually he'll see the value of the MicroStrategy. Now, look, last thing I'm going to say about this is if Bitcoin goes down, MicroStrategy is probably going to go down harder. So it is riskier in that respect. But I think it's a worthwhile risk to put some money into MicroStrategy. This is just me, as all these channels say. This is not financial advice. It's just what I'm doing, and maybe you find that interesting, or at least worth doing a little bit of your own work. But that is what I'm doing. I do own Bitcoin. I do own the Bitcoin ETFs, and I do own MicroStrategy. I have a little bit of the miners and a little bit of Semler, which is a company doing the same thing as MicroStrat, but on a much smaller scale. All right, that's it for my market update. Hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next one.